Hi mathematicians. We are now in section 2.2. So we're going to start talking about this definition of limits. And so I'm going to write down the limit as x approaches a of f of x equals L. So we would say the limit, if I'm reading this, I would say the limit as x approaches a of f of x is L. And what does this mean? Basically, what we are saying, draw myself a little graph here. And so here would be our x, here would be our y-axis, of course. This would be my function f of x. Zoom in a little bit, okay? And this would be my x value a. And the output here, that would be my L. So we're saying as we approach A on the x-axis, right, as we are getting closer and closer to A here, the output of this f of x gets closer and closer to L. That's what we're saying. And we can talk specifically about approaching A from the right hand side and approaching A from the left hand side. And the limit exists if the limit as x approaches A from the right equals the limit as x approaches A from the left. Okay, so if those two are equal, we say the limit exists. So here in this graph I made, as we approach A from the right hand side and we approach A from the left hand side, we can see that we are approaching the same output L. And so therefore we know the limit here exists. So let's do let's do some examples. Yes, I will just get into, oh, this looks like a great example. I'm going to switch this out for your book. And so we have this one-sided and two-sided limits here. Question number 18, and it says use the graph of G in the figure to find the following values or state that they do not exist. If a limit does not exist, explain why. Okay, so first they're asking what is the G of 2? What is the output when the input is 2? So if I come down here, the G of 2 come up is going to be 3, right? G of 2 equals 3. Maybe I'll write in pencil. That'll probably work out better in the long run. Okay. Letter B, the limit, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little minus sign right there by the 2. So I'm going to read this as the limit as x approaches 2 from the left of g of x, or the limit of g of x as x approaches 2 from the left. So again here, this whole thing is our g of x, right? And so we're approaching 2 from the left, right? So I'm going this way on my x-axis, right? Approaching from the left. And so what is the output as we approach 2 from the left? The output here is 2. All right, and so now let's approach let's approach 2 from the right of g of x, right? So we're looking at the limit of g of x as x approaches 2 from the right-hand side. There's a little plus here. And so I come down here, and I want to approach 2 from the right-hand side. And so as I approach 2 from the right-hand side, I see the output is 3. Which brings us to letter D. So first, they asked us what was the g of 2. Well, the g of 2 exists, it's 3. They asked us the limit as x approaches 2 from the left of g of x. They asked us the limit of x approaches 2 from the right of g of x. And they want you to notice that this does not equal this. As we approach 2 from the left, we do not get the same output as we get when we approach 2 from the right-hand side, right? Approaching from the right-hand side, we get an output of 3. Approaching from the left-hand side, we get an output of 2. Because those two things are not equal, I'm going to write D and E, or does not exist. The limit does not exist. Okay? Likewise, let's go ahead and do that for g of 3. So g of 3, the output, when you input 3, is going to be 2. And then we have the limit of g of x as x approaches 3 from the left-hand side. Okay, so now, I knew it was a good thing I used pencil for this. So now I'm approaching 3 from the left-hand side. And that means I'm coming up here. And so the g of 3, as I approach from the left-hand side, we get an output of 3. As I approach from the right-hand side, though, I get an output of 2. And they didn't finish up with one more question, but here, again, we can see because the output, as we approach 3 from both the right and the left-hand side, because these are not equal, no limit exists at 3. So I would write the limit as x approaches 3 of g of x equals does not exist. Okay? And then g of 4, I wish they had, well, no, they do finish with a good one. Okay, g of 4, output is 3. The limit is x approaches 4 of g of x. Okay, so it's not asking for the left or the right, it's just asking for the limit in general. And so we're going to look to see, as we approach this 4 from the left and the right-hand side, from the left and the right-hand side, we actually approach the same value here, 3. So it exists. Okay? All right, I hope that was helpful.